Do you spend your days thinking about your next meal? Are you thinking about food all the time? You might think it's just because you like food too much, but most of the time there's an underlying issue that goes far beyond your love for food. In this video, I'm going to show you how to discover that and heal from it so you can finally break free from emotional eating and lose weight. Emotional and binge eating are complex challenges that have their roots in both your psychology and your physiology. There are many reasons why you may be thinking about food all the time. And as we explore them and solve them one by one, you get to step into a freer and more nourishing relationship with food, which means, yes, you lose weight, but more importantly, it means that you get back all of the time, energy, and life force that you used to spend thinking about and worrying about food and your body, and you get to spend that time and energy on things that bring joy and fulfillment. So today I want to help you explore whether much of your obsessive food thoughts are being fueled by a scarcity mindset. For many of my clients that I support in my trauma-informed eating psychology practice, there is a constant preoccupation with food. They say things like, I think about food all day long. As soon as I finish one meal, I'm both feeling guilty and thinking about what I'm going to eat next. Many also tell me when I anticipate a new diet, I spend the days leading up to that diet in a free-for-all, eating all the things I'm afraid I will miss. And sometimes they may also be thinking about how to undo the damage of what they ate by planning to restrict or by doing some other compensating behavior. It's maddening, and I can totally relate to that. I spoke yesterday with a woman who just gotten home from a family vacation. Although she wanted to be more present and enjoy the time with her family, she had to admit that she felt like she wasn't really with them. She wasn't there at all because so much of her energy and focus was on how to control herself around all the food options, how to be good, how to undo the damage she had done at the last meal. Oh man, I get that. And I've often joked, but kind of believe that if all of us women could take the time and energy that we spend tormented by food and body and put that to use to solve problems in the world, we would be able to solve global warming, world hunger, and any other problem that we face today. Because the truth is, there is a tremendous amount of brain power and life force being wasted on food thoughts. So let's start working on that today in this video. There are a lot of reasons why a person might struggle with thinking about food all the time. Here are some of the most common. Number one, you may have grown up in a big family where you had to get your share of the food before it was gone. You may have experienced times when food was not plentiful. Right? Not everyone has access to quality food or enough food at times. You may have had a parent who monitored your food intake, didn't allow you to snack even if you were hungry, or didn't allow certain kinds of foods to be eaten. You may have been heavily influenced by diet culture, which convinced you that certain foods or eating a certain amount of food was bad, and that you were morally good or bad for adhering or not to the rules. You may have restricted yourself a lot in the past, having periods of time in which you denied yourself certain foods or even caused yourself to be hungry on a regular basis when on a diet. Even just thinking that you should be on a diet can create food obsessive thoughts. If you identify with any of what I'm talking about, know that you're not alone. I remember the decades I spent consumed by food and body thoughts, and my groups are filled with people who also struggle in this way. So let me give you a couple of practices that you can start implementing today to start to shift away from food thoughts. The first one is to make peace with food. When you have struggled to control your food and you want to release weight, it's really easy to see food as an enemy, something you wish you could just avoid. But the truth is, food can be a beautiful part of our lives. It nourishes you. It keeps you alive. And with a relaxed, grateful, and even joyful attitude about food and its place in your life, you can see it as your friend as opposed to something that you have to control or avoid. Believe it or not, it is possible for you to stop denying, whether in thought or actuality, and begin nourishing. In truth, there is no such thing as a good or bad food. Yes, of course, there are some foods that support health more than others, but food is not morally good or bad, and you cannot be good or bad based on your food choices. Enjoying food is the goal rather than making food something that is prohibited. It's long been recognized that food has the power to heal and support us. Nutrigenomics is an emerging area of science which explores the idea that food is information which is communicated to our genes. This information then turns on messages that foster health or disease. And thinking about food in this way can really help us make choices that support our health and reminds us that food is a friend, food is a healer, food is sacred. I love the phrases that are used by Carolyn Cooker-Ross. She says joyful eating and being a joyful eater. Wow. How does it feel to hear? Take that in. Joyful eater. Being joyful and feeling good about the food you allow into your body is such a beautiful aspect of this healing journey. Joyful eating is really about figuring out what food feels best in your body and honoring the act of eating as a nourishing experience. The first practice I want to offer you today is to enjoy food. I ask you to see food as real medicine. Welcome it into your body. Thank your body for sending you the signal that it's time to nourish yourself, and being thankful for the beautiful nutrition and delicious taste that you choose to give your body. I invite you to consider, when was the last time you had a truly enjoyable eating experience? I mean, an experience that you walked away from feeling nourished and satisfied instead of guilty or remorseful. It could be helpful to write about a few of your eating experiences this week. Write about the wins where you were able to appreciate and enjoy your food, and the times when it was harder to be happy about eating, or when you weren't present, mindful with your food. If it helps you, pretend you're French, right? The French really take their food seriously. The enjoyment of it, that is. Mealtime is a savored and sacred experience. I remember a story I heard once of an American archaeologist heading up a dig in France. Every day, the French workers would leave the work site, go into town to enjoy a beautiful meal, and wouldn't return for over 2 hours. The archaeologists instituted a new rule. All right, the workers have to stay, they have to bring their lunch to the site. No more leaving for lunch. So imagine the archaeologist's surprise when the next day the workers arrived with tables and chairs to sit in, white tablecloths, and they sat and ate and enjoyed their lovely meal in their lunchtime respite. To the French, food goes hand in hand with relaxation and enjoyment. So the second practice I want to offer you is to explore the role of the food police and restriction in your journey with food. We are all very aware of the food police. They are out in full force all the time, letting us know what's good to eat, what's bad to eat, how to combine which foods and which foods cause which ailments, etc., etc. The biggest problem with the food police is that there is no one jurisdiction. Ask 5 different cops and you're going to get 5 different answers. Now, so along with legalizing food and enjoying your food, we also need to remember that while it's okay to try on advice from outside yourself, the only person who really knows what you should be eating is you. To a certain degree, restriction and control has led to some of your challenges with food, and an important part of your healing process is letting go of those restrictions. Evaluating yourself on a daily basis for how well you avoided certain foods is not the freedom that you're seeking. Now, even though the idea of loosening your restrictions around food may sound scary, and I totally get that, you can be sure that there is safety here, and it's a necessary part of your journey to freedom. You may feel that without your current restrictions in place, you're going to go completely overboard at every opportunity and end up gaining additional weight, but I invite you to at least challenge that belief and be open to understanding the role that restriction has played in your food struggles. Overeating as a result of restriction is a really simple, explainable, and scientifically studied reaction. It's a survival mechanism of your extraordinarily complex and amazing brain. A restrictive mindset, whether you actually restrict or not, is met by the brain as a threat. Your brain can't tell the difference between real famine and possible famine. Restriction or a restrictive mindset will cause you to crave and seek out large amounts of calorically dense food to help you survive the perceived famine that your brain believes is right around the corner. This is a normal symptom of a normal, healthy brain. So restriction is actually one of the biggest fuelers of overeating. And when you stop restricting, you can reduce overeating experiences because you're not triggering your brain to say, oh, eat up now, God only knows when we're going to get this again. If you did nothing else but stop restricting, you'd probably lose weight because your overall intake of food over a period of time would decrease. Think about it. Isn't this concept true for just about everything? Whatever is forbidden is more appealing. What we resist persists. I invite you to cultivate awareness around restriction. How do you restrict and when? When you restrict, what's the result? Aren't the foods that you restrict most the ones you end up turning to the most? A great way to determine if you're being restrictive is to ask yourself, how are you eating compared to the aligned version of you? When you have no weight struggle, no emotional eating struggle, no binge eating struggle, and you just feel the way you want to feel, how do you eat? I also invite you to think about where your food police came from. Education about good and bad foods often start in our childhood homes. Rules are then reinforced in school and by what we read, see, hear in our culture. It's helpful to jot down where your food rules came from and ask yourself if you can be open to seeing things differently. Ask yourself if you're willing to be released from food prison and start living with food from a place of body wisdom. Some things to ask yourself with respect to the origin of your food rules would be, how did my family view food? Was it used for comfort or reward? Was it withheld as punishment? Were there different rules for different people, different bodies? What comments were made about other people's choices regarding food? Were certain foods disallowed? Were you forced to finish your plate regardless of how your body felt? What diet rules have you adopted? For example, do you believe all carbs result in weight gain? If you eat cake, you'll immediately gain 5 pounds. Don't eat before noon. Skipping meals is the only way to lose weight, etc., etc. You may consider adopting a powerful affirmation that you say every day to help you adopt a less restrictive mindset. You might start with something like, I realize that there are many rules floating around about food. Naturally, they can't all be right. Knowing what to feed a body is a very complex but natural thing. As I'm becoming more connected with my body, I can trust it to tell me what food serves and in what quantity. I know this is a practice. I don't need to have it all figured out right now. I can take the time to learn a little each day and know that I'm on the right path. If you can embrace an affirmation like this, begin to read it every day this week or longer. Put it somewhere where it will remind you of what you're striving for. If you can't embrace this affirmation, try to craft one that works for you. It should be one that you can believe, but that moves you closer to freedom with food. Now, as a final component to this exercise, I invite you to ask yourself, where else are you restricting in life? Very seldom do we humans do something with food that we aren't doing in other areas of life. Where else are you restricting and feeling you should not be partaking of things? Go through your life and see what comes up. There are no right or wrong answers, just a willingness to be aware, open, and honest. As you understand your scarcity mindset and adopt a more fluid relationship with food, you'll also find your obsessive food thoughts calming down, and this feels amazing. I want to note that changing the scarcity mindset is important, but it's only one aspect of changing your relationship with food. In my Freedom from Emotional Eating course, I teach 3 main keys to overcome binge and emotional eating, and I've created a free series of resources to teach you more about the 3 keys, how you can bring them and use them for developing food and body freedom. You can sign up for these free resources below in the video description. Freedom is absolutely possible with the right knowledge and support. Thank you for spending time with me. Subscribe to the channel if you have not already. And I can't wait to hear how your work with the scarcity mindset goes for you.